How you doing today? I'm Sock's Way Up. Thanks for joining. This is another episode of Socktown. For today's episode, we are going to focus on building out our farming industry. It's the first industry that we're going to build, and I'm excited about it. I'm going to make it a new city in our little town. But first, I wanted to show you something I promised in the last video, some move it tips. We're going to lay down 2 roads here. And then we're going to do some manipulation with Move It so you can see some of those advanced features I was kind of talking about. So we got 2 roads that are parallel with each other. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them now, so let's do a couple changes to make them a little awkward. Let's say the game, you had some terrain you're dealing with, so you started with a road that looked like this. And again, we're going to use Shift, not Control. I said that in the last video, but that is absolutely not right. You use Shift, you click all the nodes that you need. You could also use the marquee tool that kind of selects everything, but we can show that later. But then we're going to slope these. So we hit slope objects. You see a nice slope there. Now we're going to select all the nodes for both roads, and we're going to have them aligned with the highest road. That easy. So you select the align object, and then you click the object you want to align it with. So those are some of those tricks that I figured out along the way after I was done making the last video, and then I just upgraded them to be elevated roads so you can see how quickly and it would be to make some nice elevated roads. And then we're playing around with it a little bit more. We messed up the slope a little bit, but we're like, you know what? Let's fix the slope. Let's make it clean. Let's make both of them even. It's that simple with Move It. Great mod. I looked up a couple tutorials. There's a bunch of really good ones out there. If you are more interested in what you can do with that mod, go check those out for sure. So other than that, I just wanted to kind of give an update on what we've done off camera. You can see we're extending this area out big time over here. And whoop, one of the things, let's get rid of the zone so that looks a little better. We're using districts finally. So this first district that we used, the specialties that we added to it were the self-sufficient homes and also the organic produce or commercial. And here you can see we added a elder center as well. And then over by our high school, I think I shown a little bit. Yeah, you can see the self-sufficient buildings there. Yeah, and then over here we do have our first daycare. That should help us with our population. The elders will live longer, and I believe the daycare promotes more children. Not sure how that works, but that's how the game interpreted it. So after our freeway episode, I did add some off-ramps and on-ramps. I like the way this one turned out. It looks like a typical one that I see in the town that I live in. And this one over here, we're going to ignore that. It needs some work. But we added a lot of fertile land here, and I have this add-on that I can just customize and just throw down fertile land whenever I want with the brush. I went overboard. We'll reverse some of that when we get done figuring out how we want this new little city or little town that we're going to build. So the idea here is we're going to start breaking apart our city into smaller sections. Think of it as a large, maybe, city that has multiple towns in it, metropolitan area. But here we're going to start off with a dirt road. This is a farm area, so we're going to probably just have a couple small houses, not too many houses, and, you know, we're going to pretend like this one that's going to be built right now, he's going to be, you know, the main farmer for crops in our farm industry as we get going here. So because of the way the DLC works, we do have to put our main building down, so we're going to put that over here, and it's going to end up unlocking the assets that we need to start getting our farm industry up and running. So we place it there. Also, that should trigger some of our residential area to start populating that we put down there. And since we are going with the idea that this is a farmer, we're going to build behind his house where his crops would be. Think about Joe driving through an area where you've seen a farm in nature. The crops are usually behind the house, or the house is alone by itself and you have a bunch of crops. So that's what we're going to do here. I sped up the video a little bit because it was, you know, a little tedious, a lot of stuff going on. We had to expand our district area to fit. We added some water in here. Again, we're going to have to expand the district area so that this last crop will fit. And here we go there. And then once we get this all laid out, we're going to shrink down the district because it's really huge right now, covering a lot more land than we want. Then we picked a variety of different asset types that we wanted our crops to appear as. This is kind of a thing in the game that's just for look and feel. It's not necessarily a functional thing. That will all turn into crops. They're just a generic crop, even though some are corn, some are potatoes, some are wheat. But I like the way they look. So then we go ahead and we add a barn next to it. The reason why I have some of these assets open and we're just a level 1 farm and there's some silos is because I built this all out and hated it and started over. So we did get to level 2. So I do have some unlocked that you won't have when you first start your farm, but you can add them on. It doesn't take very long. I think it's maybe 150 workers that you need to get in your farm district, and then you get upgraded to level 2. So we got our crops going. We're extending this other road. We're pretending this new town is expanding as new farmers move in. This other one wanted to be a little bit off this main dirt road, so we built a house here and another one across the street from him. And he's gonna have our produce area, or our cows, our pigs, and those type of assets in his property. And so that gives us a good start for our industry here. And here we start adding a few more residents to the area so that we can build out and have some, natural homes. Maybe they're just some workers for the farm, hanging out, helping out. And our profit is pretty low right now. That usually happens when you start an industry, right at the beginning at least. The demand for crops was high because of our pastures that we put down, so it started importing. As you can see, a majority was imported, then all of a sudden it just shifted over to it's all our own produce, or our own production. So our profit went way back up. Now we're at 2,000, almost 3,000 a week profit, which is gonna go up and down as resources are available and needed. And if you balance out your farms pretty well, or all your industries, it'll always be profitable. So by the end of this video, we're making a lot of money. But again, we're gonna add another barn here, give it a nice look. It's not necessarily where you have to put them, but I wanted it to look realistic again, so I added a barn here once we had enough money. At this point, all I could think about was this place needs to be more profitable, but we get the barn down. Eventually, I think we add a silo as well next to it. So that's a good start so far. Industry's starting to make us some money. We got a lot of things laid down that would be, level 1-ish. And as you can see, we're no longer importing everything. We are making it all ourselves, so our profit is gonna start increasing big time pretty soon. And at this point, I really got sick of being broke again, so I took out a few more loans so that I can buy the flour mill and the cattle shed that we're gonna add in a few seconds here. But getting those loans really freed us up. And for the cattle shed, we do extend this out to another kind of acreage that this cattle shed owner owns. We give him a house and we plop down the shed down there where he's slaughtering away the animals and sending them out to make some money. Again, we're adding just that single home. Once we plop that down, get the water in, once we plop down that cattle shed, that house will populate because of the way our electric roads work. That's why that happens sometimes. But that guy's going to make our industry a lot of money. The next step is going to be our flour mill. We're going to go ahead and extend on the other side of this main road so that we can separate some of this area that might cause a little bit of pollution. I think the cattle shed might as well, but we're going to add some flour factories down here, and that should give us the full cycle to be able to find our unique building and place that down to make the bakery so that we can ship out goods to our commercial buildings as well as some commercial buildings in the rest of our city. I also added some commercial buildings for around the flour mills. Kind of thinking of those workers, they're hanging out at work, they're spending their time there, they're going to lunch, they need somewhere to do some shopping, maybe some lunch breaks, stuff like that. We also added some of our vanilla game industry in here, and since we zoned this entire district to be farm specialty, they come in as farm buildings, which really matches this area. It's going to be a rural area that has just farms and farm-like things. We might add a high school or an elementary school to help out, but here we are. We're profitable. This entire industry is making us money. We just need that unique building, and we can ship out those goods and call it done for now and wait for a bunch of workers to move in. we will expand. Eventually, we'll keep growing this area. Some more farmers will move in that have crops, that have animals, and just keep adding to that profit of us shipping out goods to the other cities in the area and exporting those things to make us a lot of money. And to finish up this area, we're just going to add a few more residential houses. Again, we need a lot of workers over here. We're trying to keep that mental idea that these people that live here are the ones working in the farms, working in the bakery, working in all the stores and shops that are around the area. And I'm making them tiny little ones. I don't want big mansions out here. I want just some small mixed in little houses for these small families to live. They don't make a ton of money, so I want that to match the way the farm industry works. At this point, our profitability is going up. We're making money. This is going to really help us extend the rest of the city. And eventually, we're not even going to worry about money. I know I said that a couple episodes ago, but we're really getting to the point where money's not going to bother us. The pastries are going to make us a lot of money. That bakery is going to send out a lot of goods for us. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Socktown. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any feedback or comments or questions, feel free to let me know, and I would love to interact with you guys and get some tips from you as well. Our next episode, we're going to catch up on some of the lacking details in our city. I want to detail specifically this area here to make it look complete before we get too large, and that eventually will feel overwhelming. So we're going to catch up on that in the next episode, and you can kind of see how I think about detail in a city and how it comes together and looks complete at the end of it. But thanks for joining. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Socktown.